Hi, I'm Kathy Quo, and today I'm going to show you how to arrange a few different flower arrangements using a couple different mechanics. The first one is going to be a mechanic-free arrangement where we're going to do some bud vases. A second one, which I'm going to show you later, will be in a much larger vase, which we're going to use either chicken wire and or taping. And the last one we're going to do is in my favorite, which is a clamshell bowl, of which we're going to use a frog to keep everything together. A really important tip for these bud vases is that you'll want to use warm water if you want the flowers to open up. And if the flowers already open up, make sure that you're replenishing your water every single day. And if you can't do that, at least add a little bit more fresh water every single day. The best idea, though, is to use flower packets, the ones that have sort of the crushed powder in it. But if you don't have that, another hot tip that you can also try to do is crush up aspirin or use powdered sugar. The goal of all that, honestly, is just to disinfect the water and keep bacteria at bay. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you the different flower varieties that I have here today. We've got some main character flowers here. One is a beautiful, beautiful pink calla lily. Then we have a purple tulip. And then we have some side character flowers that are more filler flowers that you would use in the mid to lower part of the arrangement. This one's called the hypericum. And then we have this other really, really pretty one that's called Status right here. Look how pretty they are. And so the reason why we chose these two is because I live in New York City and I don't get a ton of natural light. These will dry really beautifully, just like it is. Okay. So to get started, I've got my handy dandy shears right here. And I am going to start off by using either the calla lily or the tulip as my main focal point. And I'm going to actually kind of find a high point here. And I can do it a few different ways. Is this tall enough? Do we want something taller? Let's look for something maybe even taller. And so that's what I'm going to do first. And so this one I've kind of already decided I really, really like the height of it. And I also really like how it bends. And so I'm going to put it in here. And then I'm going to find maybe a secondary height. And by the way, another way you can find like what a good height is you can, without cutting it first, you can kind of turn it here and say, maybe I want it to end here and cut it there. Or I want to end it there, but you also want to give it a little bit of slack just in case you make a mistake, you can take it down a little bit more. So I feel like this one will look really good if I end it right over there. Put my finger there and you're going to come in at an angle like this. Always on an angle. You're going to put it in. What do we think? Is that pretty? Great. I think it looks super cute just with two on its own. It doesn't need a third. Roll of thirds don't apply here. I'm going to move on to this next bud vase here, which has water in it already, but it has a slightly larger opening. And I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do this one. So the first step is I'm going to process the hypericum. So I'm going to take these off. Okay. So I'm going to want them tucked in pretty low. So I'm going to do that trick again. Probably tuck them to around there. Let's see how it looks in here. That looks pretty cute. What do we think? And then I'm going to take the Status. I'm going to group them. I'm going to take sort of I'm going to do this grouping first. I'm going to do another small grouping. Put that in there. Look how pretty these colors are. I'm going to add a little bit more Status in here, just around the edges. Just to get it really full. And this one's clearly too long. All right. I've rearranged this a little bit, and I've positioned the statuses to the outside, and then the hypericum to have a little bit more of a height here, so it looks like this. Another way we could also give this a little bit more visual interest is we could pull a single tulip to give it a high point in here, and that could be sort of very sculptural and really pretty as well. And that is how we've completed the bud vase. Next, I'm going to show you how to do a very large entry vase with a larger opening, how we're going to use tape and or chicken wire to achieve a much more voluminous look. So we're now on part 2 of flower arranging for spring, summer. I have a very, very large entryway vase, as you can see. This has always been one of those things where it's like people are like, what do I do with this? So I'm going to show you today how we can address this. The first thing is, because it's a really, really tall vase, like you might say, well, what do I, stuff it with to sort of, ensure that like I have enough height here. Some people use the Oasis foam. I don't really recommend it because it's really toxic. In this particular instance, I'm only using florals that dry really, really nicely. So I'm not putting any water into my vase. And so as a result, my greenery is actually going to serve as sort of a structural support. So it'll act as my filler, so I don't need to actually fill it with water or any foam. So that's the first step. I'm going to also share with you what I'm going to be using today, the varieties. I'll show you, start with the dried stuff first. First, we have this beautiful dried palm. That's like a really, really cool, fun sound to it as well. We have dried hydrangeas. These are actually dried and slightly colored, this dusty rose, which is actually one of my favorite colors. This is not dried, but it will dry similar to this, and it's called an amaranth. And it usually comes in a dark red color. Today we have this beautiful sort of, light green color. Then we have some greenery. This one's asparagus fern. It's a little wild, a little lush, a little fun. See that? And then we have bear grass, which is the opposite of the asparagus fern, very structured. We also have the hypericums that have these really, really pretty, sort of peachy pink bulb color. And then our status as well here. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to prep this vase by applying taping to it. Now, I actually don't totally need to do it because I have all this greenery that will offer structure, but I'm going to show it to you anyways in the event that you have a much wider mouth and you need the structure. So I'm going to start with using clear tape. I'm going to go down like this. And I'm just going to make a grid just like this. And I don't need to make the grid very, very tight because once again, I have a lot of greenery here. Okay, then I'm going to go on this side. By the way, I've had this vase in my apartment for 6 years now. It's usually, I have a blooming branch usually in here. It's whether it's cherry blossoms or apple branches. So this is something that I'm trying new today. I'm really, really excited for this. A hot tip on the taping is that you'll want to do one last tape around the outer edge just to make sure that you secure everything in so the edges don't come up. And that is perfect. All right. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the foundation. So I'm going to go in with just my greenery. And I'm choosing this because they're a little bit taller and I'm going to sort of position them in and around this grid just to set a foundation here. Okay, and I think I need one more in the front. All right, there. And I'm going to go in next with my asparagus fern. The funny thing about these ferns is they're a little bit prickly on the bottom, so you want to be careful when you're holding them. You can wear gloves, or in this case, just be a little bit more careful. These ferns are a little bit more wild. They're going to create a lot more structure around the base. Let's get this piece off. And I'm kind of just looking to see if there is an opening calling my name. And I'm going to go there. Fun. That feels good, right? I can always come back in and sort of add more to it at the end, but I think my next step now is I'm going to put in some of my focal flowers, such as these, and then I'm going to come in and tuck and fill in a little bit more later on. I also have these as well. The bear grass I'm going to put in at the very, very dead last, just to give it some like architectural element in there. I'm kind of at like a halfway point right now, but I wanted to show you that I have this beautiful sort of cascading moment in the front. And this is deliberate, even though I thought it wasn't going to look very good. I think this is really cute right now. I also put my hand into the hydrangea and I kind of opened it up a little bit just to give it a little bit more volume. And then I gave another hydrangea bloom in the back just to give it a little bit more height. The hypericums are going to be sort of in this middle area, as well as the palm frond. So that's going to address the middle area. And then here's another high point that I've created here. Lastly, I'm going to use the bear grass, and usually they come from the florist like pre-tied up like this. I'm going to keep it together because they don't really look good when it's like open and everywhere. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm probably going to take this and I'm going to sort of tuck it into the back here at the very end. But I have a few more things that I want to tuck in here and there. And so I'm going to play around a little bit more, but this is where I'm at right now at the halfway point. So now I'm kind of almost done. I don't want to forget about these fun little guys. They look like tassels, the amaranths. I'm going to actually get a cluster. There's 3 of them here, and I'm going to try to tuck them off to the side, like here in the back, right like this. And I think the second trio, I'm going to really want them to sort of cascade down here following this cascade here, like maybe like this. So for the last arrangement, I have my favorite clamshell vase. I use this seasonally. Sometimes I will have ornaments, sometimes I'll have pine cones in it. This one's going to be much more ikebana styled. We're going to either lean it to the left or to the right, because the bottom of this is actually not flat. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a flower frog, and this is going to hold all of our dried flowers in. And how I'm going to get this to be held down is I'm going to use this putty that I have here. It's Florals putty. Kind of looks like tape. And so I'm just going to grab a little bit of this. I'm going to tape it all along the outside. And it sort of feels a little bit like Play-Doh, like this. And be careful because the backside is very, very sharp. I'm going to place her here, like so. And that's how I'm going to start. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a pretty low profile. So it's just kind of emerging from the clam. I'm going to kind of build it out a little bit here. Maybe a little taller guy. Like this. A couple more. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come in with my hydrangea. And instead of doing the full head, I'm going to actually cut it. I already pre-cut one here today. So it looks like this. And I'm just going to tuck her in here like this. I'm basically making like a little bonsai tree. So now that we've gotten it to this point, we have sort of this fanning out at you, kind of like a blade coming at you and a high point considered here. I'm ready to actually add the architectural element, which is the bear grass. And remember when I was telling you before, the bear grass usually comes rubber banded. I'm going to take actually a third of it. And by the way, it's really, really sharp. It has sort of like a blade-like texture if you run your hands this way. So don't do that. Just kind of be really careful with this. You're going to take it and you're going to tuck it like this. And then you're going to rubber band it here. And I'm going to just tuck it right in here later on. And I'll show you how I do that. The key with the frog is I have to just go in here, commit, and just shove it in. And I think that looks really good right like that. So now we have it. We are totally done. We tuck the bear grass into the back, and we have this high point here, and we have this sort of asymmetrical clamshell that's going to live on top of my fireplace. What do you think?